If you actually want to stop overpopulation, you do so by making sure more people's kids survive, right? Because if people have kids and if they have two kids and they know those kids are probably going to survive, they'll stop at two kids. But if they have if they're like, hey, a certain number of my children are going to die under the age of 10, they'll just keep having kids to make sure they have enough later on. Anyway, it's weird. It's weird. Human psychology is fun. Humans are crazy.
So how you doing, man? Like I haven't seen you in a couple of months since Annex event.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm working away. On. I'm actually writing copy for a living again, which is pretty fun.
No way, really? Is it you writing copy or is it you with ChatGPT?
No. Well, I mean, I'm using ChatGPT for some shit, but it's not like it would take so much work for me to get AI to write a sales letter for me, right? I mean, maybe the second or third time it'd be easy, but the first time I would just be annoyed with it. I think I could use it for like rewriting a guarantee and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm not going to stick my head in the sand about it because I do think it's a big deal and it's going to impact the world in crazy ways. I also think if human history shows anything, it's that nobody's predicting things correctly, right? We never predict anything correctly. I mean, everybody was predicting either crypto was going to change the entire finance system and banking was going to go away, or it was all just going to explode and be nothing. Well, what is it? It's somewhere in between, right? So people were saying AI is going to destroy all these jobs. So the metaphor I keep using is, a couple different things. One, the steam engine didn't destroy jobs from all the people who were digging holes in mountains. It just created more. We just dug a lot more holes in mountains a lot faster. And the same thing with freeways. LA has an 8-lane freeway thing, right? And people keep thinking, hey, you add more lanes to the freeway, you'll have less traffic. That's never how it works. You add more lanes
how
to the
come
freeway,
that never works out?
Because it just creates more capacity and people drive more. Right? That's all it does. It basically, traffic will get to a point of a certain level of annoyance where enough people are willing to go on the road, but not enough are willing to stay the fuck home because it's too much traffic, and it'll stay there in that stasis no matter what you do, assuming there's enough population to make that work. Right. But it is funny because it's I was talking to somebody the other day, my buddy Mason, one of my best friends. We're just talking about how common sense is very often wrong. Right. Like people that think that things are well, it's common sense that it goes this way. I'm yeah, common sense is wrong a lot, maybe more than it's right, honestly. Lots, they even say childbirth, right? If you actually want to stop overpopulation, you do so by making sure more people's kids survive, right? Because if people have kids and if they have two kids and they know those kids are probably going to survive, they'll stop at two kids. But if they have if they're hey, a certain number of my children are going to die under the age of 10, they'll just keep having kids to make sure they have enough later on. Anyway, it's weird. It's weird. Human psychology is fun. Humans are crazy. Yeah.
That is a good point. I've never thought about it that way, especially with overpopulation being a big issue.
It's a really interesting thing, though, because we're hitting an issue now where we're going to go the other way. And people have been predicting this for years. We're having a fertility crisis, right? So we're hitting this tipping point now where everybody's like, oh, shit, we're not having enough babies. We're not having enough children. And there isn't going to be enough people in the economy for us to be able to support all the old people. Yeah.
Are we really? I mean, aren't we overpopulated?
Oh, we are overpopulated. Yeah. And we are still getting more overpopulated in some ways, but fertility rates of Western countries in particular are dropping precipitously. It's already negative in Japan. Japan has fewer people now than it did 10 years ago, right? Because they just aren't having enough children. And then you have this whole generation now, younger than me. I mean, I don't have kids and I'm 45, but a lot of people who are younger are kind of in this existential, there's a bunch of different factors keeping them from having kids, right? One is it's really fucking expensive. It's really, really fucking expensive to have kids, right? And so a lot of people who are 30 don't have any fucking money, right? By the point, when I was 30, I was kind of getting going a little bit. When my parents were 30, they were set. They had kids, they had a house. The kids these days, kids in their 25 and 30, they don't have any fucking money. They just don't have any fucking money at all. What are they going to do? So they're not having children either. And then you add in the existential dread part of it, right? You add in the climate change destroying the planet, and you add in the war in Ukraine and everything else. And a lot of younger people are just opting out. They're just opting out of the whole idea of having children. And
it's really common for me to hear that as an excuse. I got two kids. I got 10 and 4. I had my first kid at 25.
Wow.
And, yeah. So, and then I had my second kid when I moved to Canada from Israel. And back then I was too stupid to recognize the issues this world has. Like I was too
Yeah,
stupid about
absolutely. Yeah.
climate change. I was way too stupid about anything else. And now I was thinking, if I had to have kids now, I don't know. Like it's a disturbing world out there, and I'm starting to understand the argument because a lot of people said that. But there's another side of that argument. How do you plan to make this world a better place? Well, having grown up in Israel, and this was really profound. I went to school to a military academy, right? And what's really interesting, on my way to and from the academy,
Because everyone in Israel has to serve in the military.
yes, but the academy was not meant. It's kind of like high school, but you're like a soldier. And that's because the army subsidizes your education. So you get a really good education above high school education. It's actually what got me into Canada as well. Like part of why I was able to immigrate is because these 2 extra years I did in the academy were recognized as college education
Cool.
by the Canadian immigration. And so they gave me an extra 100 points in my immigration score, and it got me like 30 points above the minimum requirement or something.
Someday I want to talk to you. I find the military, the compulsory military service thing really interesting because I think about like, how does it affect a society when everyone has been in the military, right? As far as
Oh, it's really cool.
Yeah, I believe
see
it. I
lots of
believe
positive
it.
in that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
the
believe it.
military is.
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about the military in a bit. Like I'll share the positives and negatives. There are lots of live lessons there. But what I was trying to say is this. So on my way to and from the academy, I had to take a bus ride about 45 minutes each way because it was in a different city. And on my way there, we were passing lots and lots of Arab villages. So imagine an Israeli town, an Israeli city, and in between there's like 350 to 500,000 Arabs who are like,
Oh wow.
yeah, as soon as there's any kind of,
You know, I'm an Arab. You know, so
well, dude, it's a heated environment, right?
I know.
So
I know.
there's,
Yeah.
you know, like it's not uncommon for the bus that I used to take to for people around, right, to throw rocks or to throw bottles at. And whenever there was like a heated situation with Palestine, you know, or geopolitical climate was changing, they would be putting like tires on the road and firing them up. And yeah, like there were actual like channels on WhatsApp where you were being told, okay, today don't drive to Beersheba, like today stay home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one time I asked someone, I said, how are we ever going to get along? How are we ever going to get along? Because you get into a conversation between an Israeli and an Arab about this whole situation, especially if they're older. I mean, it's game over. It's like getting a Republican and a Democrat on the opposite ends of that spectrum.
I have
right?
a whole thing. We could talk about that too, because I am having so much fun these days because I'm pretty left overall, right? And I'm having so much fun these days making really good friends with people I fundamentally disagree with. I'm having a great time with it. It's really
well,
fun.
you see, that's not how it is in Israel. In Israel,
Yeah.
everyone's super opinionated and they'll go head to head. And so the answer I was given, which I think is really, really smart, is it's the next generation. It's you raise a generation of Israelis and Arabs that are being taught that it's cool to get along. Right? Because it's really hard to change an existing generation that lived their entire life. Like my dad, for example. My dad served in the Soviet military. He graduated the Suvorov Academy in Moscow, and you can't convince him that Russia invading Ukraine, even though I was born and raised in Ukraine, like he was dispatched to Ukraine, he served in Ukraine. You can't convince him that Russia is being bad. You know,
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like no amount of like you can show them any evidence you want, right? Like every piece of evidence
everything
in the world,
you'll
it
show
won't matter.
will be basically they're met with a that's not true, that's fake news, or otherwise that thing will actually serve as proof why he's right. You know how that comic
confirmation bias is amazing.
Yes,
dude. It's
like
amazing.
that comic
it's amazing.
about a guy who believes in God and a guy who doesn't believe in God. They're on an island, and the one who doesn't believe in God is building a boat, and the other guy is praying. And so there's a comment under the picture says, "Oh, do you see? Like, you know, this is what actual like you have to save yourself."
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And someone comments, "Well, do you see that God sent this other guy,
the guy to get the boat to build the boat? I gave you a guy who would build a boat. Yeah, that would totally do it. To your point, though, it's like World War II, right? Japan and World War II, there were a lot of American soldiers after that for years and years who could not deal with the idea of like doing business with Japanese people because they saw their friends tortured and killed. They saw all sorts of things. And there's no way you're going to they just couldn't let that go. How could they let that go? Especially during like when you're in the middle of a war and there's propaganda dehumanizing the other side for you the entire time.
Yeah, yeah. But Japanese understood it. I mean,
Yeah.
their economy skyrocketed after the war, and in the following like couple of decades, they surpassed everyone.
They did, yeah, yeah, they did.
I think they're really smart. I've always admired that about the Japanese culture, the Korean culture, their dedication to work, dignity, discipline. I've always admired that.
The opposite side of that, though, is like Japan and Korea are where they have the highest cases of overwork. You know, literally working yourself to death. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually have some a friend told me he used to live in Korea because he's a Russian guy, married a Korean, so he lived in South Korea for a while. He says that either in Korea or Japan, there are places where there are designated places for you to go and kill yourself.
Oh my God.
Like you go there's a parking lot, a special lot where you basically put your car there, leave the keys inside. Somebody comes in later to take it away and donate it or something or throw it out.
Whew.
And you go into the woods or something and you kill yourself.
That's efficient at least, but wow, it's like some kind of Star Trek episode or something.
So anyway, back to the army conversation.
Yeah.
The compulsory army service. So I was born in Ukraine where the service was compulsory, but everyone was trying to escape it by either bribing officials or pretending they're going to go to college. And Israel, very few people try to avoid it. Israel is actually a part of it's just normal. Like you plan for it. You know that immediately after high school, you've got 3 to 4 years.
From the moment you're born, you know that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that's normal. Like every day you'll be walking down the street, you'll see soldiers carrying rifles. They'll be having training exercise in the city. It's absolutely normal. And in Israel, I think it's done right. In Israel, army is a bit like a job, where people treat it like a job. People treat it like, it's a normal thing. Some people do it as a job, meaning they actually go to like from home to the army and then go back home every day. Some people serve properly, like every 2 weeks they'll go out for a couple of days home. Some people do 6 months, etc. But in general, people are cool with it. It's sort of like an extension of high school because you go from one framework to another framework where you learn a different set of skills. So in Israel, your actual adult life doesn't really start until you're like 24 to 27, because after you've graduated from the army, you're still living with your parents. You still haven't really lived on your own.
Yeah.
And most people go back to school after the army because they realize they need an education. So, and Israel has like a really low graduation percentage. I think it's like only 11% of graduates pass.
Really?
Yeah. The school system ain't great.
Wow, that's insane.
Which is a paradox because there's so many Silicon Valley products like that end up in the Silicon Valley that are started in Israel. So in my opinion, the army, the positive is you learn discipline real quick. I remember when I got in, we had I think we were waking up like 5 or 5:30. And you had to make your bed and be next to your bed dressed up in like 60 seconds. And we had this one guy who continuously refused to wake up and to get up. Like he was awake, but he just sort of played rebel or something. And our commanding officer, which was actually a 19-year-old woman, she basically she punished us because of him. She made us do the drill, keep doing the drill until he actually woke up.
That's a great way to get compliance from somebody, is to punish everybody around them. Yeah, that'll get the job done. Yeah,
that worked. So you learn team spirit, you learn discipline real quick, but you also learn another thing which I think is really important to learn in the world we live in, and that's bureaucracy.
Okay.
It's such a bureaucratic giant bureaucratic machine, where you can't get anything done without, approval from this person and that person above them and the person above them. Like nothing really gets done unless it goes through the whole chain of command. Yeah, it's uh, so these are, I'd say these are the positives, but I hated it. I hated every moment, especially after reading Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Sure.
because that was the moment when I started rebelling against everything. Like every traditional, common, like is it common sense rule, like studying hard, go and have a job, being like everybody else. I just did not want to be like everybody else at that point.
Mm, that's awesome, man. I just think it's really. Did you make a lot of friends in the army that you still have? Was that like a really big bonding experience, or did it just are these
Huge
kind of people
bonding
that passed you?
experience.
Yeah.
Huge bonding experience. One
Hmm.
dude was from, originally he was Iraqi. I think his family moved to Israel a long, long time ago. I mean, maybe second or third generation. We became best buds in spite of us actually cheering for different football teams, which is very difficult. Yeah, very difficult to do.
It's a rare thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't hang out with him anymore. I haven't spoken to him in years, unfortunately. But back then, I remember one time I went back home. Every 2 weeks, you were allowed to go back, and I remember on a Friday night, I was actually sad because I missed him. I genuinely missed him. It was really funny.
Yeah. It's an interesting. I do feel I was talking to a friend of mine the other day because I didn't join the army or anything like that. I went right to college after high school and then get out of college and moved to LA afterwards and just had no idea what I was doing or had no real support network of anything. And I think it would have been nice to have a year or two of some other kind of formalized thing or some way to kind of get launched in a more powerful way than just being like, hey, you're done with college. Go. Good luck. You're 21. Go figure it out. Have a good time. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty
Mhm.
cool.